Hello, everyone. My name is Bailey Daniels, and I am the Director of Admissions at the Toronto Heschel School. I'm very pleased to welcome you today to a roundtable discussion with Heschel alumni and current parents. So for those in our audience who may just be starting to learn about Heschel, I'm just going to preface our roundtable discussion with a few remarks about the school. Heschel offers an integrated and arts-based education in a pluralistic, welcoming Jewish community. We offer a progressive curriculum. We install values of derech eretz, or mutual respect for each other and all peoples. And as a platinum level Ontario Eco School, we have a strong emphasis on environmental education and stewardship. The school is situated on an expansive 15-acre campus near Shepherd and Allen Road in Toronto, giving the kids ample space to play and learn. So we are fortunate to have with us today 3 individuals with different Heschel experiences. We have a current school parent, a past parent, and a graduate of the school with us. So I'm going to introduce them now. Our current school parent is Seth Singer. Seth is the president of Think 33, a marketing and communications company here in Toronto. Seth's son started at the school in JK and will be graduating this year. He also has a daughter who started JK in 2009, and she graduated from Heschel in 2019. She is now in high school at Mackenzie in the MAX program, which is a specialized program offering enriched programming in math, computer technology, and science. In terms of Seth's involvement with the school, he has sat on its marketing committee for several years. He had volunteered with various events over the years, and his company is actually involved in working on the Heschel website, as well as various other marketing initiatives. Moving on, we're going to now introduce our past parent on the panel, Jessica Comey. Jessica is an occupational therapist currently working in private practice. She has 2 daughters and a son who all attended Heschel from JK through grade 8, with the youngest graduating in 2018. 2 of her kids are enrolled in Bachelor of Science degrees. One is at York University studying psychology, and the other is studying kinesiology at Queen's, while the youngest will be graduating from Chat this year. Jessica was involved with the school while she was here as a class parent. She sat on the grad committee, and she was involved in organizing Mitzvah Day, among other Chevra activities. Lastly, on our panel, we have alumna Paige Mawson. So Paige made her first appearance at Heschel in 1996, the year the school opened, as her older brother was in the very first JK class. She herself started JK 4 years later, and she graduated in 2010. Paige then made her way to Greenwood College for high school, and she pursued an undergrad degree in arts and sciences at McMaster University. Paige is currently enrolled in her 2nd year of a Master's of Museum Studies degree at U of T, and she concurrently works as the education coordinator at the Goulbourn Museum in Ottawa. And I have a fun fact for you. While in undergrad, with the help of one of her professors at McMaster, she published a peer-reviewed article in Canadian Jewish Studies about the Toronto Heschel School garden. With our introductions complete, I am very much looking forward to getting into our roundtable discussion. So we're going to start off with questions that are posed to both Seth and Jessica, our current and past Heschel parents, before we turn to asking Paige some alumna-specific questions. And if we have time at the end, we'll pose a few more questions to the group. So parents, Jessica and Seth, I'm going to ask you the questions, and I'm going to alternate who goes first. So maybe we'll start with Jessica. Jessica, why did you choose the Toronto Heschel School originally? And in which ways was the school what you expected? And in which ways was it not what you expected?
So we actually, when we were looking at schools for our oldest daughter, it was 2003, and Heschel was still in its infancy. It hadn't been around for that long, and but it was on our radar. And so we ended up going to an open house. And I think what we were really quite impressed with was this whole concept of an integrated curriculum. My husband had gone through a traditional day school system, and both of us really felt that change was long overdue. I think also the whole, the way that they talked about integrating subjects, arts-based integration also was something that we were seeing in the post-secondary educational world, with more problem-based learning, a movement away from only rote learning, and starting to integrate critical thinking into how students were taught. So all of these things together, coupled with the passion that the educators that spoke to us that day, we both felt that this was the right place for us to start. And I think, you know, Heschel has really, I mean, I'm looking back. So for me, all of our academic expectations were absolutely met. I think our kids came out with an incredible education on so many levels. I mean, just if I want to get into specifics, you know, academically, all three of my kids went to Chat, and Chat has a placement test when you first go. And all three of them, you know, were placed in the enriched programs for everything that there was an option for at Chat. And when they got to Chat, they felt confident, they felt prepared, and they felt that they were well ahead of you know, the majority of their peers. So from that perspective, I would say Heschel really met our expectations academically. And I think that the curriculum, the integration, the arts-based, the way that they teach critical thinking has stayed with them. And so from that perspective, I would say it really has met our expectations. I can't think of anything that would say, that I could speak to, that would say it didn't meet our expectations. You know, I am seeing the forest through the trees at this point, and there's not really anything that I could think of that really spoke to you know, where I wasn't completely satisfied. I really felt that they came out with exactly what I had hoped they would come out with, as learners, as social beings, and as people.
Great. Well, that's great to hear. Seth, I'm going to ask you the same question. Why did you choose the school originally? And in which ways was the school what you expected? And perhaps, you know, which ways, you know, in which ways was it not what you expected?
Okay, great. Well, Jessica definitely stole my thunder with a very similar answer to what we moved to the neighborhood in 2007. We had actually originally, when kids were really little, you obviously have to start thinking about enrollment to school. And we had looked at Bialik before they were ready to go to school. And once we moved to the neighborhood, we learned that there was a school called Heschel, went to an open house. And 3 minutes later, we decided to go to Heschel. And it wasn't because of location. It was literally our first conversation with Greg. And it was just that idea of like, I went to school, I was a straight A student all the way through university, graduated summa cum laude. I understand the power of education. My wife is actually a lifelong learner. She just finished her PhD and a doctorate. So we value education, but we don't value the old way of educating, which is memorizing and just, you know, what did I learn, the dates? What did I, you know, just provide read the information and provide it back to the person. This school is all about thinking, teaching people to think, like creative problem solving and thinking. And those two combinations mean you can accomplish anything in the world. Learning to show up every day and achieve something. Heschel is designed for that, not just from like show up like each year, but if you show up every day from JK to grade 8, what you can learn is unbelievable. You can write essays in Hebrew, you can draw, you can paint, you can do drama. But it doesn't matter if you have one of those strengths when you start the school. Like if you know, obviously every kid is different. Some kids are wonderful at math, some kids are amazing at science, some kids are physically active. However, at Heschel, every kid gets all those opportunities to repeatedly practice all of those things in the most cutting edge methods available. So we've learned even over the 10 years that my kids were in school, and my youngest is graduating next year, is that it wasn't the same as when they started. They don't just have like, well, this is how you teach math, and this is how it's going to be every year. If there's a better way to do something, they implement it. And they don't just implement it like randomly, they implement it with research and professional development to go, you know, and the teacher buy-in and the whole school, you know, coming together, that maybe there's a better way that we can do something. And then they go and implement it. And that's so refreshing and amazing to see, because it's not, well, here's a teacher who just taught math with the same textbook for 30 years. Like, you know, there's a great line in The Incredibles, like when did they change math? And like, that's the idea of Heschel, is that, you know, numbers are numbers, but there may not be only one way to solve a problem or to learn something. So It definitely met all of our expectations. And seeing how our kids have grown up, and it's like they're little adults, and never, I mean, definitely didn't expect that, like didn't expect the growth to happen at the level they do. And I think my kids, just seeing them interact with kids from other schools, especially my daughter in high school, she's in the enriched program, so she can see obviously the other enriched kids are kind of at her level, but kids who haven't been in that kind of level, kids who haven't had an enriched program like Heschel, they're just not at the same level of understanding of the world. Sorry, my apologies. So I guess that would sum up why, yeah, there was we can't recommend Heschel enough in terms of it was met at all of our expectations and more for sure.
Great. So Seth, we're going to turn to you first for the next question. How would you describe the values of the school and the values of the families in the school community?
It's a great question. I've definitely, made lifelong friends in our 10 years at Heschel. We've made like lifelong family friends. Our families are really close to a number of other families. And I think it's because we all share the same values, is that we see that Heschel is not a closed community. It's part of a greater community. There's a community of Toronto, there's a community of the world, there's the environment, and there's inclusivity. Like, it doesn't matter what level of practice you do of Judaism, if you are Orthodox or secular or whatever, conservative, everyone's included, and everyone's considered equal. So the equality is, and diversity as well, like diversity of thought. So you don't have to have there's not one opinion in Judaism, obviously. So that whole value that like we value people's opinions, and we see if there's a way to improve it and include it. Everything from birthday parties to like outside the school, to all the community events. The families are always welcome, and it's an open environment. It's not like, well, what's happening? You leave the kid at the door and walk away. The families, they mingle, they participate. Like the families are part of the learning all the way through. So I would suggest that would be part of the values, and and they live by that. Like they're invited to participate, to volunteer, to contribute, to see their kids. Like there's always multiple events throughout the year where the families come in to see their kids, what they've done, and the kids obviously are like so proud to present all their work to the families.
Thank you. Jessica, same question for you. How would you describe the values of the school and the values of the families in the school community?
So it's so interesting listening to Seth's response and to hear that the way that Heschel integrates the families and the way that builds the community is still so strong. We left the school a number of years ago, but Seth is still having that same experience. I think that Seth mentioned inclusivity, which I think is such a huge value at Heschel, and I think it is just woven into everything that the school does. I also wanted to bring up the fact that Heschel has a very strong value of its relationship to Judaism and tzedakah, and that is really woven into the curriculum. And I think and it's not about giving money, it's actually about giving and about who you are as a person, who you can be as a person, how you can give, who else is out there in the world. And I think Seth had sort of mentioned something about that. It's more than just you and your school. There's a greater community, there's a greater world. And Heschel really, through their programs, walks the walk. With programs like Pay It Forward Purim or Mitzvah Day, kids are taught that on any level, no matter how big or how small you are, you can actually make a difference in the world. And I think that really, really creates confidence. It creates confidence in yourself as a person. It creates confidence in yourself as a learner. And it creates confidence in your ability to be the best person that you are.
Fantastic. Thanks, Jessica. Staying with you here, what, to the best of your knowledge, most differentiates the school from other schools?
I think that the integrated curriculum is really what differentiates it. And I think where you see this sort of coming alive is that the teachers and the educators and the administrators within the school, they buy into it and they feel passionate about it. and they enjoy teaching, and they want to be there to impart this curriculum on their students. And I think when you have a group of very committed professionals who are there teaching your students, teaching your children, the reception of the learning and of the education and of the information is so different. And I think that probably what starts off as an integrated curriculum leads to a passion amongst the teachers and leads to a passion for learning amongst the students. So I would say that's what really sort of differentiates it. I will also say that Heschel has sort of found that sort of beautiful balance between being a very highly academic institution and also a very nurturing place, so that, you know, kids can work to their own levels, whether they're you know, really excelling in certain areas, or if they require a little bit of extra help. Nobody feels that they're being compared. Everybody feels that they're working towards the best that they can be. And I think that's where the nurturing comes in. So I would say those were sort of the two areas that I feel like Heschel is definitely different from other institutions.
Great, thank you, Jessica. So Seth, I don't know if you have the same feeling on what differentiates Heschel from other schools, but what's your take on that question?
Absolutely, I concur 100% with what Jessica said about the integrated curriculum and how what kind of difference it makes. The nurturing, it just sounds like I'm hearing like an echo, which is wonderful. It means like if you went through the Heschel experience from kindergarten to 8th grade, you're seeing it, and then you see it from what happens afterwards, like as they grow up. I guess I'd add a couple points, I guess, on the integrated curriculum is that each subject at Heschel is treated equally. And I don't think in my school experience that, or even in other worlds, that the subjects are equal. Like phys ed is just as important as art and music. And I don't mean like just in that subject in that day. Like there's a drama program every year that the kids participate in some sort of drama activity. There's a poetry festival. All the different activities go across the board in the subjects. Like you're learning a topic across subjects, and it gives the weight. And then the kids are able to expand their minds and expand their ability, like being physically able to do things, being able to creatively think. Like you don't have to be an artist to do art. You don't have to be a musician to love music. To learn Hebrew is a very challenging thing, but if you're learning and hearing the sounds of Hebrew from, in a classroom in kindergarten all day long, all the way through 8th grade, you can now think in Hebrew. You can think in another language. I mean, to be able to do that as a child is unbelievable skill. Like, so you're expanding all the parts of your mind, your left brain, your right brain. And that's how the integrated curriculum comes in, that you're not just studying math going, okay, I'm only going to learn about numbers in math. Wait, suddenly I'm doing art in math, and I'm doing math and art, or, just a simple example. But just the other part of it is with Judaism is that, the idea of Judaism in theory is that like, well, it happened in the past. You're just learning about the past. You're just learning history. But they bring Judaism to life in making it more like, what is it? How does Judaism work today, now? Obviously learning about the past, but, debating it, questioning it, asking questions. Is this how it's supposed to be? All of those things make it really, really exciting and really different. So I think that equal level of subjects where it's like, oh, I have to go to gym class now. It's not like that. And it allows kids over the course of the time that they're there to really find what they're passionate about. And that's amazing because, again, when you're in kindergarten, you're like, okay, I'm good at this, or like this kid's really great at soccer or whatever. But if they've never tried, and they're like, I've never tried drama, it's just not something I'm interested in, but they have no choice. They have to try. And it really works because they discover so much about themselves and what they're capable of, even if they never anticipated that they could do that.
Great.
That's
Excuse me.
I wonder if I could just add to that, because I think that is such a huge factor of Heschel. And I can speak to a real world example with a son who is very heavy math and science and very into sports. And through Heschel was really able to try and feel and see and do different things, and probably in a way that he wouldn't have been encouraged to do in another institution. And I think the whole left brain, right brain is exactly what you see developing. You see that there's obviously a dominance with certain things that kids may be good at, and that's what they pursue. But when they're given the opportunity to try something and to do something, and that particular subject is something that's valued, they actually can develop a skill that they didn't think they had. And it stays with them, and it goes with them through the rest of their life. And they actually are more well-rounded beings at the end of it.
Is it okay if I add one more point on top of that?
Sure.
Yeah, I'll just, so one of the things, I guess it comes back to expectations, is maybe you'd expect nowadays, like there's no textbooks, you'd expect everything to be technology driven, and it's not. It's not. And if you were to ask companies at Google and companies who are tech companies, they send their kids to non-technology schools. And the reason is learning cursive, learning how to do math by hand, learning how to do the skills, learning how to draw, learning how to use your hands, learning all these things is for your mind. Like maybe you're never going to be a mathematician, but if you push that part of your logic, you can suddenly do things that you never thought possible. So I'll give my examples. My daughter had two examples. One is that she was afraid of the Hanukkah concert. She could not go on stage, period. She would cry, she'd walk off. The teachers would support her every year. It wasn't like one time. It was like until like 6th grade. By the end of Heschel, she ran for deputy prime minister. She would speak in front of the school. She's confident to present. She writes presentations for organizations now. Like she's happy to present. She does all kinds of things that there's no way if you saw this kid growing up. But the reason is they keep putting her up there. They keep giving her opportunity. They keep supporting her. They're not just like, go look. They give her the tools. They give her the practice. And the key is that practice. Like, okay, this poetry festival, you got to go up and read your poem. You're going to be nervous. But by the 8th grade, 10 years of doing it, you can't wait to share your own original work, right? And then I guess the other example is that my daughter went to the Max program, and she literally gets almost 100% in every class. It's really challenging. It's not easy. It's really difficult. And then she went and took 3 computer science classes with no pushing, decided I'm going to take a 12th grade computer science class in 10th grade. At Heschel, she learned 0 lines of coding on, a little extracurricular, but they gave her all the tools, the math, the logic, how to problem solve. Learning the computers is much, much easier if you have the skill set, the foundational skill set of how your brain works and how to solve problems. The computer science is just, and I'm a computer scientist also, is just learning coding, which is learning like the syntax, but not how a problem needs to be solved.
Right. Great. Okay, Seth, we're going to stay with you here. If the school were to be represented as a single person, what would its personality be like in only 3 words?
So I'm glad I get to go first, so Jessica doesn't steal all my words. I would say curious is the first word. I'll explain these, I guess, at the end. Caring and confident. So by curious, I mean, obviously they have, Rabbi Heschel has the beautiful line that the wonder is the root of all knowledge. And they create curiosity from the moment you walk in the doors to the moment you leave, that they're curious about the world. They're curious about why things happen. They're curious about, why do I learn this? They're curious about everything. And they discover so many things, and they feed off of each other because everything's really project-based. Like, of course, there's tests and there's, checks and make sure that, like, are they learning? There's definitely ways that the school checks that they're learning, but they create this curiosity of like, it's not about, it's okay to fail. It's not about success or failure, but it's based on trying. Like, should we try this? Like, let's try this experiment. Like, they teach them from kindergarten to be scientists, like to think of be a scientist, do a hypothesis. What would happen? Like, take a guess, right? Don't just be told by a teacher, this is how this works. What if you discover it on your own, and then you find, happy discoveries that you never would have found if you didn't try it on your own. So that's the curiosity, which is ingrained in the curriculum all the way throughout. The caring is that the teachers care about their jobs, they care about the students, and it shows every day. Like, they don't come to work. It's not like coming to work. It's like coming to, like, it's like your kid is obviously part of your family, but then they're at school, however many percent of the day, right? This is their family as well, especially when they're younger. And it's such a safe environment because the individuals care so much and they know the individuals really well. And that, you kind of build, they don't forget you. Like, the kid leaves, they're like, oh, they want to know how the kid is doing, how they're doing. And then the other part of caring is they don't just care about the students, they care about the environment, and they show that every day, and they care about the community. And they put that into practice all the time. How can we contribute to the community? How can we be a part of the community? How can we build it up? And community of people, and obviously, again, of the other organizations. And then confident, I mean, they've been doing this approach to education for 25 years. And I think they build an inner confidence that this is the right way to teach kids. And I think it's really important to be confident, not to be like, oh, hemming and hawing, like, is this right? No, they've proven it over, like, every year, and the people that go through and the success these, I guess we'll learn from Paige, I'm sure very successful, but the success of the alumni, the success of students is huge. And I think that's the question that I would always encourage parents if they're going to go to, picking a school in kindergarten is, yes, what is the kindergarten classroom like? What's, all that's important, but what can they do when they grow up? And I'll leave with what this is. My daughter was asked a question, like in her careers class in high school, like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And her answer was, you're asking me the wrong question. Is what kind of person do I want to be when I grow up? Not what do I want to be? And I was just amazed by that, because it's what is the whole person? What kind of person? Your career is going to go through ups and no one does the same career all their lives. That you do all different kinds of things. But if you're that same person, you're going to succeed.
Great, and great insight on your daughter's part there. Jessica, your turn to let us know what you think. If the school were to be represented as a single person, what would its personality be like in just 3 words?
Really, I love this question. And I love that Seth had 3 different words to what I'm thinking, but they're very much connected. So I would say that my 3 words to describe Heschel as a person would be intelligent, collaborative, and kind. And I listened to Seth's answer and I thought, wow, there's so many common threads, yet there's so many different adjectives that we could use to describe the school. And I think that if I was to just elaborate on those 3 words, intelligent, I think we've talked about it. It's a highly academic institution. It's intelligent in its approach to education. There's absolutely nothing that's brought forward to the students that's not very, very well researched and documented and thought through, and that this is the right way to teach. And there have been studies that show that this is the way to impart education and knowledge for children. I think I would say collaborative, because I think your collaboration is, when you have an integrated curriculum, collaboration is something that just happens. It's organic. There needs to be collaboration with the teachers. So teachers have to speak to each other. They have to know what's going on. There has to be consistency within the classrooms, because there is all of this discussion going on behind the scenes with the teachers, with the teams. And so you have a team approach. You have this collaborative approach where the teachers are really teaching, but they're teaching together. And I think that the collaboration also then extends to the family and the parents, that the family and the parents are always welcome, that there's always a place for parents to come in, to talk, to collaborate, to provide insights, input, and the teachers are always receptive. And I think the collaboration then extends to home, that we're teaching what the students are learning at home. So it's almost like the village, right? The village that raises the child. Really, you see within Heschel, because it is just an effort from so many different impactful adults in this child's life. And I think kind is the last one that I wanted to share, because I really do feel that there's just such kindness. There's such kindness as soon as you walk into the school. There's such kindness that's mirrored, and that's shown to the kids, and that they show to each other, and they leave understanding what it means to be treated kindly and what it means to treat others kindly. And I think that's really what you want to see your children be able to do.
Wonderful. I look forward to hearing Paige's answers. That's going to be the one question that we pose to our alumna as well, but we're going to hold off for a few minutes on that. So Jessica, what would you say is the biggest impact the school has had on your children?
I think the biggest impact is their confidence. I think they're confident learners. There's always this talk of critical thinking. What is critical thinking? And I think critical thinking is just knowing the right questions to ask. knowing how to learn in a way that's going to make sense to you, that's going to work for you. And I think that they leave Heschel with this confidence that their questions are good questions and that their ability to learn is very strong, and that they know how to go in there and advocate for themselves as learners. And I also just want to say that they're confident socially. And what's so interesting about this is that, you know, when we talked about inclusivity back in one of our other questions, I think what that also breeds is at a time where children are going through in their sort of pre-adolescence, when they're going through major transitional changes, breaking away from their family a little bit, starting to figure out who they are as a person. When they can do that in a place that's inclusive and accepting, they're able to express who they are. They don't have to try and just have all the right things to look like everybody else. They can actually be who they are. And then when they get to that next stage of life, which is high school, they're confident. They're confident to make good social decisions, to be sure of who they are as a person, and to stand up and to say, this is actually not going to work for me, and I'm okay saying that. That's a really difficult thing to teach as a parent, because it's at a stage where the kids don't necessarily want to hear from their parents what they should or shouldn't be doing or saying. But I think Heschel allows them to sort of grow in that way, that when they get to the stage where they actually have to stand up and be who they are, they're comfortable and confident doing it. So I would say that really the biggest impact that Heschel had on my kids was just this confidence, this all around confidence.
Terrific. Seth, I don't know if you have a similar feeling, or if you would say something different for what the biggest impact the school has had on your children.
I definitely see the confidence in the kids. It's unbelievable how much confidence they have in their abilities, and they don't have it like in the moment necessarily. Like they're definitely like, I know like with projects, like I don't know how I'm never going to be able to do this, and then they accomplish it. So they get the sense of accomplishment, and then over time you keep accomplishing, you keep achieving, you keep succeeding, and suddenly you have that confidence. So then when you realize when life gets tough, you can have that confidence. So I definitely agree with that in terms of probably the biggest impact that they have when they get out. And also this ability that they know that they can learn. I think there's a big idea of like learning how to learn. So in the old style of education, when you learn about memory, I think if you have a great memory, like I have and my kids also have, is that it's easy to just in the short term be able to get the information and then provide it back. But that's not learning. Learning is, can I learn how to learn? Can I teach myself something? Can I explore something? And they have that innate idea that I'm confident that I can learn it, and then if I practice it properly and I go and find the right person who can help me, and I collaborate with my colleagues or a teacher, I can learn anything. And it's pretty spectacular how that goes. And the other piece I give is that both my kids are so different. One of my son is huge into theater and drama. My daughter's into like super academic and into sports. Completely different children, which obviously every kid is, and they both found their ways to like excel in Heschel's environment. So it wasn't that, well, if you're just great at math, this is the great place for you. So they realized that like, wait a second, I can find my way here. I can excel at drama and theater and art and excel there, or I can be the technology, go in path in technology. My daughter also started her own baking business. Like just the confidence to like, it's almost like they're ready to grow up too quickly, I guess is almost what happens after Heschel's, that like they're ready to start their lives. I know they're only graduating 8th grade and they have lots to learn and everything, but they feel ready, like they're very prepared. So
Great. So last question I'm going to pose to the parents before turning over to Paige is, what do your children have to say about the school, Seth, when asked?
What do my children have to say? I mean, they say there's a lot of Hebrew. They definitely add that point, I'd say, is that there's it's challenging. I think it's a positive challenge, that they're challenged, that the school challenge, and I think that's a big thing, is that they don't feel like you don't get the words I'm bored, like Heschel's boring. It's not boring because there's always something happening. There's always something to strive for, something new to learn. And I think that I think they would also speak the same words that we've been using almost the whole time, saying like it helped them with their confidence. They thought the teachers really cared about them. They'd have great stories to tell about, you know, the interactions with students and their different experiences, like from the class trips, the class events, and then, you know, different projects. I know my kids' favorite project was certainly the Rube Goldberg machines. They both loved doing that project. But they would definitely just say, I'd say they speak about Heschel the same way we're speaking about it.
Great. Jessica, what do you think your kids have to say about the school when asked about Heschel?
So, I mean, I can tell you that my kids, when they're asked right now, if you ask them that were they happy that they went to Heschel, they are so happy. They would not have wanted to go anywhere else. And I think that what that really speaks to is that they're looking back on a hugely positive experience, that there was so much good that was a part of their school, and so much good that was a part of their education. You know, all of them will say, and I actually want to speak to one of Seth's points, that all three of my kids, and I'm sure everybody feels the same way, is that they're so different. You know, their challenges are different. Their strengths are so different. What they're into, how they are socially, what they're like with their friends, everything. There's such three different individuals. And they've all come out with this highly positive experience and this confidence. So I think what I would say is that the biggest impact is that whoever you are as a person, you know, Heschel appreciates and cherishes, you know, the individual person. I just want to read you, if I can find it. I asked my son is on a trip in Israel. And I asked them, can you guys tell me what you would say about Heschel? And this is from a kid who is he's super into math and science, you know, just wants to do math and science all day and play sports. If he's not doing math and science, he's playing sports. And he would say, I would say that Heschel teaches the ability to connect seemingly unrelated issues in a beautiful way. And what that really says to me is they can see that everything is connected to their bigger world. So I really wanted to just end with that.
That's great. Thank you so much, both for your insight and wisdom about Heschel. We're going to turn now to Paige Mawson, our alumna. And it's been more than a decade since Paige graduated from the school. So she has the benefit of some time behind her to get perspective. So Paige, what would you say you appreciated the most about the school during your time there? And how has your perspective on that changed now that you have some distance from the school?
Yeah, I think what I appreciated most about my time at Heschel was the opportunity to be really creative in all things. So whether it was sort of inventing a new number system or math or dramatic retellings of the biblical stories or Roman myths, there was always room for imagination and wonder in my learning. So definitely looking back on that experience, that was a really kind of joyful way to go about my education.
Mm-hmm. Great. And what, to the best of your knowledge, most differentiates the school from others?
It's definitely been said here already, but for sure, the interdisciplinarity of the curriculum. The school really tried to dissolve silos between the traditional subjects. So rather as viewing each of those subjects as discrete and separate from one another, the school's approach really places knowledge in kind of a constellation with each other so that all things are connected, almost like through time and space. Art is never far away from science, and science is never far away from the historical moments in which they arose. So to me, what's so unique about the Heschel School's interdisciplinary approach is that, as has been said already, no one piece of knowledge is kind of at the center or elevated above the others. Rather, you learn things as part of a networked whole.
Mm-hmm. Great. Now, if there was one thing you could change about the school for the better, if you had to choose something, what would it be?
Yeah, so looking back on my time at Heschel, I loved the opportunities for creativity and to kind of explore different ways of learning and different ways of knowing. But speaking from my personal experience there, I would have liked more choice in how I went about my own learning. You know, so much of Heschel's curriculum is about exploring your individuality and kind of deciding how you want to be as a whole person. So I think maybe allowing some students to write more essays if that's what they're more comfortable with, or really express your own sort of learning style would have been something interesting for me to explore in my time there.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. We'll pass that along. So the same question that I had asked our parents, if the school were to be represented as a single person, what would its personality be like in only 3 words?
Some of the words are very similar. So I chose outgoing, as in someone who's willing to try new things, take a leap of faith and experiment, as well as work with others. Creative, definitely. Someone who's really trying to express themselves in all ways. And then the last word I would describe it is critical. And I don't mean that in the sense of negative or harsh. I mean inquisitive and curious, and constantly kind of asking why, almost poking and prodding a little bit, always trying to push a little bit further.
Right, right. What do you think that families might find the most surprising about the school who had never been there?
I think I'm speaking from hindsight here. What was most surprising is how many of the lessons learned aren't actually curriculum content. So much of what I learned at Heschel was ways of thinking and knowing, ways of just being and interacting with the world and my peers, and even ways of interpreting my own beliefs and my own faith system in Judaism. So being able to place myself among different actors and different systems and among a broader network of the world is really the biggest lesson that I took away. And that's perhaps surprising for kind of a middle school education, but it truly is something that's stuck with me.
Mm-hmm. And finally, last question for you before we turn to the group once again, is what advice would you give students who are just entering the school?
I think just being really open to this kind of education and this experience. Heschel really allows you to bring your whole self to your education because it does ask you to make connections between subject matter through time as you explore this interdisciplinary curriculum. So really allowing yourself to bring your own perspective as you learn and grow, and being open to all those opportunities is, I think, the most valuable piece of advice to get the most out of this wonderful education.
Great. Thank you so much for those answers. So I prepared a few extra questions. I think we have time to address some of them that I'm going to maybe direct at specific people, and then maybe anyone else who wants to comment could answer as well. So Paige, I'm going to give you the chance to go first in our next round. How well did you feel you were prepared for high school based on your Heschel education?
I definitely felt I was prepared. As I said, Heschel gives you a lot of opportunity to explore different ways of learning and different ways of showcasing your learning. So I had really developed kind of a broad range of analytical skills that allowed me to come to my high school education really able to kind of do this kind of critical analysis that you're asked to do as you move through kind of a higher level education. And those skills have honestly carried me through all the way up till grad school where I am now.
Right. Well, that's great to hear, given that you didn't continue in the private Jewish educational system. You were thrown into a private school with kids from all over the place. So glad to hear that it served you, the education served you well. Seth, you did address this somewhat in one of your answers, but I wanted to know a little bit more about your daughter attending the Max program at Mackenzie. How she was prepared for this specialized program, given that our school uses technology sort of as a tool where appropriate, but is not technology intensive, doesn't offer coding or tech studies.
Absolutely. I mean, certainly. So she had to do the entrance exam to get into the Max program. It's a very select program. They only take 90 kids every year, and 900 kids apply. So she obviously was prepared in order to get in the first place from all over the city of Toronto. And the nice thing about the program also is that there's 90 kids that all seem to really really care about learning in the same way that Heschel kids care about learning. Now, they all came from different backgrounds, most of them from the TDSB public school program. So there'd be like, I guess like in science and math, maybe she didn't learn every single topic that they covered in TDSB, but they learned different topics, but she again learned how to learn. And so to pick up and to catch up on any like specific subject, let's say within sciences that she hadn't, had an opportunity to learn yet, was no trouble at all because she could pick it up immediately because it was just learning how to learn that material. And then with computer science, and she started with never having coded a word, and she started with code one line, code another line. Then she actually entered into computer science contests, and like with she got honorable mentions. She graduated. She took an AP level course in grade 10. So her preparation was more than sufficient. And then even in comparison to the other kids, she said like, I'm not the top, maybe not the number one, but she's definitely in the top 10% of all the kids. One of the most impressive ones is actually in English. Her ability to write essays. The teachers' responses are always like, "This is a university level essays. Like they're evaluating them on a different level than a 10th grade writing assignment because just the way her ability to do research, interpret material, and that's all going back to the critical thinking model. Is that where are the sources from? What are they saying? How do I take this information? How do I interpret it? And how do I then explain it? The ability to communicate. That's what Heschel, I guess that's another piece that Heschel has provided, is that you learn so many different methods of communicating, whether it's through poetry, whether it's through spoken word, whether it's through a project or group projects, the performances they have to put on, whether it's like, it's not a 10-minute play, it's a 2-hour play, a performance that they have to prepare for. And then they have to do that in Hebrew, but they're able to do that. And then, so then they can apply all of that as like, okay, I can take this information, I can distill it down, I can get to the essence, I can write a proper thesis statement. Even the formulation of an essay, the way they teach it at Heschel, you build it up, you learn how to write a thesis statement, you learn how to write a paragraph. I don't remember ever in my school, in my entire year, and my wife teaches university now, she took the Heschel model of teaching her students how to write because they were never taught, this is how you write an essay. And no one realizes that they haven't been given the tools. Heschel goes, this is how you learn to build up an argument, not over one course, over the course of the entire 10 years. And that's how they're prepared, which is why they're ready, because they've been practicing, not for 1 week, but for their entire time.
Great. Jessica, you already spoke a little bit about how your kids were prepared for chat. So I'm going to ask you something on a little bit of a different vein. Families at the school often tell me that one of their favorite things about the school is the school community. So I'm wondering if you could speak a little bit about Chevra and the Heschel community.
Okay, so I mean, that's actually one of the most beautiful things that the school is able to offer. I think that it starts by allowing the parents to come together in a formal way through all different events that they might hold, whether it's waffles in the sukkah or organizing, something for the teachers. There's just so many different events that bring the families together. And I think what we found is that we actually ended up making so many good friends. Within each of our kids' grades, there is a group of parents that we are very close with, and that the families started off when the kids were younger, the families just would get together with the kids, and then it sort of has evolved now into just the parents getting together. And the beauty is that when the kids come back, they're so excited to come and see all of these parents that they grew up with. And it feels like this community, because these parents have known these kids since they were younger. They've seen them grow. They've seen them with all of their successes and challenges throughout the way. And it's created this like beautiful, safe place where we can all get together and we all know each other. And it really does feel like, this is who we are as a community. I also wanted to add that it's not just the community for the parents. I mean, the kids also continue to stay in touch with their Heschel friends. Sometimes they end up, continuing with a friend group all the way through high school, whether they go to different schools, the same schools, they meet up again in university. There's always this connection to their Heschel group that they went through school with, no matter where they end up. And I think that really speaks to just how the school creates something where everybody enjoys what they're doing. Everybody feels positive about what they're doing. And when you leave, you feel very positive. But yeah, I think the community that we have established, and I know, like, listening to Seth too, it sounds like it's something that continues, it wasn't just unique to my situation, that it continues to be the same way, that families develop communities. And that's really, ultimately, that's really what you want. You want a community that knows you, knows your family, shared values, and just someone that, everybody can feel comfortable around.
Mm-hmm. Great. Paige or Seth, if you have anything else to add on your take on that question about what the Heschel community is like, feel free.
Paige, did you want to go?
No, you can go ahead.
Okay. I mean, I definitely like just, piggyback on what Jessica was saying. We definitely had lifelong friends. We've had friends and some families move away for whatever reason. Like, we maintain friendships, but like our good friends in Winnipeg, they had 3 kids at Heschel, and they decided, just to move back to Winnipeg. And we've been out to Winnipeg to visit them. Like, we have, friends on the street, friends in the neighborhood. And the fact that Heschel has so many different kinds of events to participate in, whether it's the Havdalah on Ice, or again, like, you're often seeing the other families, obviously in the hallways, picking up kids every day. Like, you're constantly have an opportunity to explore, to build these relationships. It's not like once a year you see them, at the end of the year, picking up your kids from the school building. You're seeing them almost every day as they're in the younger ages, obviously less than the older. But again, there's multiple times in the school year where you're coming into the school, hey, get to see those parents again. And then obviously that lends itself to like, oh, what are you up to? And, get together and, collaborate and enjoy each other's company.
Great. I'm going to throw a question out to anyone who cares to answer. Tell me what your favorite school event is and why.
That's such an interesting question. I almost wish you could give us a list, of all of the school events, because there's so many, and they're all so different. But they all have the same sort of ruach and feeling. It's, as soon as Seth mentioned Havdalah and Nice, I was thinking, oh yeah, that was really fun. Years ago, we used to do Mitzvah Day, which was amazing to bring the school together.
We still do.
Okay.
Do you want to just, for those watching who don't know what Mitzvah Day is, do you want to just explain?
Oh goodness, I'm a bit rusty. I wonder if someone else wants to take the stage for that one.
I could just say Mitzvah Day is like, well, the school community gets together it's on a Sunday, and they separate into different groups and do all different kinds of activities, whether it's improving the garden, recycling events, stuff for building up stuff for the community, like for charitable issues. I'd say, and in terms of your original question about the favorite events, I think it's kind of like it's been COVID for a couple of years, so it's been a while since we've actually got to attend the school and attend the events. But almost every event has that feeling where, especially at the end, the pride in like watching your kids, how proud they are of what they got to do. I mean, I watched my daughter learn how to play basketball on the basketball team, from not knowing how to shoot to being the starting guard in 8th grade. But just each time you see them excelling, and then you listen to Greg after at these events, and it's kind of like there's always tears in the audience of just like how exciting you see like that these kids have achieved so much each time out. It doesn't matter what it is. So the events kind of, what the specific event is, kind of blurs. And I know everybody does love the Hanukkah concert every year, because you get to see the kindergarten kids all the way through 8th grade performing, and the 8th grade kids performing with kindergarten. And you kind of see them grow. And now they have, with the older kids, they get to put together their own original songs. So they're writing their own songs, playing their own instruments, doing their own choreography for the dances. And it's something I know the kids especially really look forward to each year.
Actually, I would add one more thing, and that is what I actually really remember and really enjoyed was each year there's with each grade has something special that they do, and it's kind of like a rite of passage. You have the Learning Haggadah that they put on, and then there's the novel study. There's different things within the year. And I think, especially when they get into they certainly feel this like immense pride, as Seth had said. But as an adult and as a parent, when you go and you start to see things like their human rights speeches and their projects that they do, where they integrate, where you see the integration of everything that they've learned. That to me was just such a highlight every year. And each year, what it is that you're going to be able to enjoy with your child for that particular age and stage.
Wonderful. Paige, I'm going to turn to you and ask, looking back, how do you think your years at the Toronto Heschel School helped to shape you as a person?
I want to go back to something that Seth said in terms of learning how to learn. I think the interdisciplinary curriculum at Heschel really did teach me a malleability in the way that I can think, and that I'm able to adjust to different expectations, different styles of learning, different methodologies, different epistemologies, which really allowed me to excel throughout high school and throughout university. It also really encouraged me to be a highly empathetic person. That malleability really requires you to take yourself out of yourself and to try and empathize with others beyond just sympathy, to really try and feel it yourself and to think through other people's positionalities from your own eyes. So I think that empathy and that malleability has really stuck with me.
Great, thank you. So just to wrap up our event today, I want to ask if there's anything else that you feel, any of you, feel that prospective families should know about the school that we haven't already covered, or any message you would like to impart as your final words to people who are thinking about sending their kids to the school.
I can start with that one, and I do have to leave very promptly. I apologize. But this is an anecdote I've given before, but I remember in JK, in the art room at Heschel, I was always told that I could never have any sneaky white spaces on my paper. Every inch of my art had to be covered with pattern or shape or collaging something. And I really do think that that's the way I was taught to look at life as well. So, every bit is filled with color in life. So that would be something
just like Heschel, I think Heschel said, live your life as if it's a work of art. So exactly. That gave you some guidance. Wonderful. Seth or Jessica, anything else to add?
I would just say that, sending your kids to Heschel it's a gift. It's something that they will have with them for forever. They will take it with them. We can hear through Paige just how Heschel, in her age and stage of life, has just completely, it's still weaving its way and showing its colors. And I think that's what I see in my own children. And I think that should really, be a guiding force for a lot of parents when they decide where their kids are going to go to school. What's going to make my child as, who they can be, the best person that they can be.
I would agree with everything that was said. I think it goes back to what my daughter said, is what kind of person do you want to be when you grow up? And I think if you're a Heschelian kind of person, like if that's what you want to have ability to confidence, ability to learn, ability to be empathetic. These are like skills that we're seeing in the world every day that we need more of. We need more kids who've gone through the Heschel way of education, that they're a whole person, that there's not just a part of you, there's a whole person there. Mental and social well-being, all of it matters, and all of it comes to fruition. And having the confidence to stand up and say no or say yes, whatever it is, and to be their own people. And I'd say that Heschel will give you that opportunity. So the last thing I'd say is to ask those questions of whatever school you're picking, of not just what's the kindergarten classroom like, it's what kind of kids can they be, what kind of adults can they be, what kind of people can they be in the world if they go to the school.
Great. You have all shed tremendous light on what it's like to send your kids to Heschel. And I, on behalf of the Toronto Heschel School, would love to thank you so much for joining us today for our roundtable discussion. Your insights are extremely valuable. And I'm sure parents who are thinking of sending their kids to the school appreciate your time as well. So thanks, everyone. It's
Thank
been
you.
a pleasure
Thanks,
having you.
Bailey.